Well, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of What Drives You. And we have a super special guest. I'm one of the hosts, Carl Bauer. I've got Stan Windhorn, our other co host, and a very special guest who is Dr. Paul McCartney. Welcome, Doctor.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So, Stan and Paul have known each other for many, many years. He is probably known better as Dr. Rock.
Yeah.
So, if you don't know him as Paul McCartney, not the musician, you will know him as Dr. Rock, based in Austin. But Stan, you guys have had a long-standing relationship, and we're just so grateful and blessed to have him on here today. So I'm going to pass the mic to you.
Yeah, in fact, it's kind of weird just hearing you call him Paul. I I don't know that I've ever referred to you as Paul. Everybody in town knows Dr. Rock is Dr. Rock or just Rock. I got to meet Rock when I opened up one of my gyms. In fact, I'm wearing the shirt in honor of you, Rock. A
Oh,
Fitness
cool.
19 gym, and Rock became one of my our members, and man, he was just always so gracious and was always willing to give advice, but it never came across as anything other than just genuine let me help you kind of advice. So man, Rock, we've known each other what, man, 14 years, 15 years now?
Yeah, maybe a little longer than that. Yeah.
Yeah. So we got to know each other at the gym. You, myself, and two other guys ended up with a group of four kind of entrepreneurs that we would get together once a week, and just four guys that could support each other and help each other. And I want to talk about that because I think it's a great idea, and I miss it. But let's kind of go back to, first of all, how did the name Rock come about? I mean, you've obviously were born Paul McCartney. I'm sure you've heard plenty of things about having that name, but how did you become Dr. Rock?
Yeah. So, I was born in 1961. Beatles didn't come to America till 1964. So wasn't named after him, two biblical
Right.
names, Paul David, right? I actually went to Slippery Rock University of Pennsylvania and got my undergraduate degree in environmental sciences. And then I moved to Texas after graduation, and I play rugby. So I actually went to a rugby practice at Galveston, Texas, and I had my Rock rugby jacket. Even though it's Texas, it was a little cool at night. So I had my Rock rugby jacket, and across the front is my name, Rock. And they just, I don't know how I got the name Rock at Rock, but actually they were calling me Rock because of the Rock rugby on the back of the jacket, because no one knew me. And so it just kind of stuck. So I've been Rock ever since.
Yeah. And so you've had a very successful chiropractic uh, business um, for how many years? When did you open Rock Chiropractic?
Yeah, so I started in 1996, 1996, and we're still going. So it's there's no end in sight. We're just plugging along and serving the community the best that we can.
Well, we're going to talk a little bit more about some of the ways that you do serve the community, and you've kind of touched on it already. But um, the name of this little show that we're doing here is called "What Drives You." So, what drove you into chiropractic? What made you decide that that was the route that you wanted to go with your career?
So I played rugby in Galveston for a while, and in one tournament, which was in Mobile, Alabama, we traveled to. There was a team that they said that everybody was paid to play. And of course, as a young man, getting paid to, play a sport that you love to play was very enticing. So I went over to the field to watch these guys, and they were really good. There's no question about it. So after the game, I ended up speaking with the coach, and we just had a general conversation. And I asked him, I said, "So what is this business about paid to play?" And he says, "Oh, no, man, no." He's a Jamaican guy. He's like, "Oh, no, man, you have to come and get a scholarship." So basically what it was is, if you were fortunate enough and good enough to play on the team, you got scholarship, which went towards your chiropractic degree. So I left thinking about that. I was already I had two things going on. I owned Sergeant Rock's gym in Galveston, Texas, which is probably why I gave some advice in the gym, just
Yeah.
because I had ownership of a gym. And I also worked for the Texas Department of Health. And my thought at that time was I was either going to go back to school, to the School of Public Health, and get a master's in public health, or, whatever else seemed to come along, which chiropractic opportunity came along. So I decided to test the waters and go there. I ended up cashing in all my retirement from the state, sold the gym, and loaded up and left. Having no idea. And when we get there at Life University in Marietta, Georgia, you had to earn the scholarship and then you had to keep it. It wasn't like your traditional scholarship where you get it and you have it forever. You have to fight for it and work for it. And we had players that were representing our country, players from all over the world, all of them, interested in becoming a doctor of chiropractic. So it was probably the hardest years of my life. I really learned a lot about myself and the challenges. And my drive actually came from, if I'm going to make this happen, I've really got to be positive with myself. I've got to be the fittest, the fastest, the most knowledgeable on the field. But also, as after 7, 8 years of being out of college, I had to figure out how to, get back into studying and a degree, and I didn't want to drop the ball on that. So it was very, very challenging. But my drive was, if for lack of a better reason, was I did not want to fail. I wanted to succeed.
Having known you all these years, that doesn't surprise me. And this isn't always just a compliment thing, but Carl, this is the first time you're meeting Rock, but Rock is definitely one of the people that has inspired me to kind of look on the positive side of things. And even if you get knocked down, get up. Don't stay down. Get back up again and move forward. The mistakes of the past are the past, and kind of keep going. And I've always appreciated that about you, Rock. I'm just really curious too, because for people who may be watching this, Rock Chiropractic happens to be located in Round Rock, Texas. Was
Yeah.
that just happenstance that you ended up in Round Rock, or was that intentional?
They tell us that in our book of life, we write the chapters, right? So I wrote this chapter without question. When I graduated, I actually stayed in Marietta for about 6 or 7 months so that I could play in the National Sevens Championship. And while I was there, I was working as actually just working for free for some chiropractic office just because I wanted to learn. And also, I was doing some research. I lived in Texas, in Galveston, met my wife, and we moved to Marietta, got the degree, and we could have moved anywhere. She's a physical therapist. We looked at other states, but at the end of the day, starting a family and being close to her family made the most sense. So we moved back to Texas. So then I just thought, well, where do we want to live? So we eliminated places first. But then I thought also, if my name is Rock and I can use Dr. Rock as a marketing tool, why not? Right. So I looked for towns that had the word rock in it, anywhere in the state of Texas. And then, yeah, at the time, Austin was a cool place to live. So we decided to look around Austin area. I found Round Rock, and I just thought it was an excellent fit, and I chose to move here. Now, if I could speak for just a few more minutes, because this is something you don't know, Stan, but when I
Sure.
first got here, I didn't know if I was going to open up or not. Now, having the luxury of my education being paid for, I didn't have a lot of student loan debt. And Patty was a physical therapist, my wife, and she was making some pretty good coin. So, there wasn't a whole, like, I was scared of things. I just wanted to get going. So I thought, well, maybe I'll just open up my own practice. So I went around and looked at different practices that might be available for sale. And I went into one, and it was a woman chiropractor, great woman, great Christian woman. We had a long conversation, and and we were talking about, the transition. She wanted to do missionary work in Mexico, so she would put her practice up for sale. They were asking way more than I thought it was worth, but it was their vision, not mine. But anyhow, I told her at the end of the interview, I said, I said, I really appreciate the time, but I think I can do this on my own. And I told her, I'm going to call it rock chiropractic. And she looked at me and said, "Don't do that, you'll fail." And I said, "I'll fail." And she said, "Yeah, because hers was Round Rock Chiropractic." She said, "Other chiropractors have come and used rock in their title and they have not succeeded." And I looked at her and I said, "You don't know me very well. You just gave me the fire, and I can assure you I will not fail." So she actually really helped me, and I think she kind of knew it, but yeah, I wasn't going to fail, especially after the challenge like that.
Yeah, she threw down and lit the spark there.
Yeah, absolutely did.
Even though I know you're in Round Rock, to me, rock chiropractic, I don't really ever associate the two unless I really think about it. Maybe that's just because your marketing has worked well and you have become, Dr. Rock, and Rock Chiropractic kind of stands on its own. It just happens to be in Round Rock. For other people who may not be from Texas or know about Texas, Round Rock is, I guess, would be a suburb town of Austin, not far from the city of Austin. It is also the home of Dell Computers. So a lot of people know Round Rock because of Dell, and of course Rock Chiropractic. But
Yeah,
uh,
there you go.
so you've mentioned a couple times how rugby has been a big part of your life, and I want to talk about that because you've built this successful practice, you've done well for yourself, but you are always giving back. And one of the key ways that seen you do this is you volunteer your time for a high school in Round Rock to coach their rugby team. But before we go to that, how did you get into rugby? Rugby's not really that well known in America. It's really more of a European type of a sport. So how did you get so involved in it to begin with?
Well, at Slippery Rock, I was going to run track. And then when I got there, those guys the year before, the track team was the Division III national champions. So you can imagine there were some really, really talented people on that team.
Uh,
My big brother in the fraternity, I had pledged a fraternity. He had played rugby in high school and he wanted to start a team. And I just decided that maybe it was time to do that. So I was a founding member of the Slippery Rock University. Well, at the time, Slippery Rock College turned into the university rugby club. And so I just fell in love with it. It was a great accommodating part of my college. You get instant friends. Of course, a lot of the fraternity brothers, we all played together, and just had a really fantastic time, and learned quite a bit, traveled a bit, got to play a sport that was foreign, and then it just became ingrained in my blood, and I've been involved in it ever since.
you know, uh, Rugby is certainly not an easy sport, especially on the body. There's a lot of, I guess where I'm going is you got to be a little bit crazy to play rugby. I'm just saying. It's like playing football without helmets. A little bit of football, a little bit of boxing. But yeah, you gotta really have that passion. So you you volunteer your time to coach rugby for Round Rock High School, correct?
So I started coaching for Stony Point High School. So there's
Stony Point.
five high schools in the greater Round Rock area. Stony Point started it. I didn't start it. Somebody else did the program. And then he decided to go back and play. And then I just kind of took it over. And as I was doing, we actually won two Division II state championships when I took over the program. And then my son was at Cedar Ridge High School, another Round Rock high school, and I was hoping he would play a little rugby, which he did, but he was more of a football star. So we ended up starting a Cedar Ridge team. And then I just decided I was going to create my own club, and it's called, I did a 503c1. It's Rock Rugby Inc. and we have Rock Rugby High School. So we had a boys team, a girls team. We just started a middle school team. We've done camps along the way for the youth. I also have Rock Rugby Academy, which is a team where we specialize in sevens, and I have players from all over the country, and we travel to some of the biggest tournaments across the country. So pretty busy doing all that, but it's a lot of fun. And I know the question you're going to ask me, and the answer that I'm going to give you is that rugby has given me so much, and I've learned so much that I don't want to take what I've learned to the grave. I want to share it with others. And just in our program, I can tell you some massive success stories of kids that were troubled, whose entire lives have turned around by being involved in a rugby program. And if Rock Rugby wasn't available to these kids, who knows what could have happened to them. So every time I think, well, maybe it's time to pass the torch, another miracle story comes up, and I think, well, I just need to hang on longer and longer and longer. But it's very satisfying for me, and it's just it's just fun. It's a
Yeah.
great time.
Well, I always marvel at the way that you give back like that, and the amount of time, just that alone. I don't know how you do it all, but you mentioned your son, and I just want to tell Carl kind of a funny story about your son. I didn't know him well, especially at that time, but I was in a restaurant, I believe it was, and I was wherever it was. It was a public place, and I was there by myself, and all of a sudden, this young guy comes up to me. He goes, "Hey, man, can I have $5?" And I'm like, "Excuse me?" He goes, "Yeah, man, can I have $5?" I'm like, "For what?" He goes, "Man, I just want $5." And I kind of look over his shoulder, and I see Rock in the background, cracking up. He had his son come up and start begging for $5. You remember that, Rock?
Yeah, dude, now that you bring it up, I remember it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that one still makes me laugh.
Did you give the money, Stan? That's the question.
No, I didn't give him the money. Rock's got plenty of money. He doesn't need my $5.
I, as an outsider, I just wanted to comment. I again, this is a little maybe conspiracy theory, but I think a humorous conspiracy. You also get a lot of built-in customers for your practice with this rough sport. So I'm just saying maybe there's a correlation between the practice and the practice. You know what I'm saying?
Well, if they come because they have an injury, great, but you'd be surprised. It's not a whole lot. Like the kids' parents make the decisions for the kids, and I don't push myself on them. It's I'm available if they're interested, and if they choose to go another route, that's fine by me. Yeah.
Yeah. That was more of a joke, just to say
No.
there's plenty of injuries. To Stan's point, I played hockey, soccer, basketball all growing up. Hockey's close in its insanity factor because you're going so fast, but we're very well padded.
Yeah.
When I watch highlights of rugby on YouTube and such, it is just, I had a buddy played at Western Illinois. Man, they just were bloody and beaten and injured all the time and just powered through it.
Yeah. It can be rough, but we do coach and learn. It's kind of like skiing. You have to learn how to fall before you learn how to ski so you don't injure yourself. And in rugby, you want to hit somebody hard, but you want to do it protecting yourself as well. And you want to be hit hard, but you want to protect yourself. So you learn the safety aspect of it. There's actually less injuries in rugby than there are in American football.
Wow.
So it's way safer.
You think that's because of some of the protection that football players have? It gives them this false sense of being able to go like helmet to helmet and things like that. Is that?
Yeah, they just launch their bodies like a missile, and they have zero respect for themselves or the other player. Whereas in rugby, you kind of have to, because if I want to finish the game, I certainly don't want to injure myself. And when you're out there, you want to play hard, hit hard. But I'm not out. When I was a player, I wasn't out to injure anybody. No one's out there to injure anybody. We're out there to be competitive, enjoy our skills in the game, and hopefully have a beer afterwards and celebrate the opportunity to play that great sport of rugby.
So, Rock, last time I stopped by the office, I kind of did a little surprise visit, and you took me in the back and showed me this cool, like indoor gym thing that you built. It's got a basketball court in there and these weights, but you were talking at that time about some other property, and I don't remember exactly what happened, but you were looking for something maybe to make it a practice field, or do you know what I'm talking about? Is my
I
memory serving me right?
I do. So yeah, so right behind my office, there's about 3 acres. And my office was an acre, and my building had a half an acre. So there was a half an acre of just dirt, just grass. I used to look out the back window and think, how cool would it be to build a rugby field right behind my office? Well, I tried to buy it for 6 or 7 years, and it was owned by the city, and it just never happened, unfortunately. So in the interim, I decided to build a 5,000 square foot training facility, which we did. That's what you saw. And so what goes on in that training facility is youth basketball, youth Olympic lifting, youth personal training. I mean, there are a handful of adults that participate, but mainly it was designed to, have availability for the community for younger kids, and it's really kind of cool in the afternoon to see it filled with kids doing all kinds of different stuff. Well, then about 3 years ago, the opportunity came to buy that land, and I had to compete against 5 businesses that were interested in actually building a building, not just having the field, but putting a structure on that field. And of course, in the state of Texas, we pay property taxes. So I didn't think I stood a chance to get the field because I wasn't building anything. I was just building a rugby field, right? So yeah, I've always made it a mission to know all the mayors in town, and I have ever since I've been here. And the current mayor is a friend of mine, and so I called him and I said, "Hey, what can I do to maybe secure the purchase of this field?" And he said, "Well, why don't you come to the city council meeting and let everybody know what it is that you're doing, and then because we essentially vote on it." And so I decided to go. And when I got there, I literally knew probably 80% of the council members from all the things I've been involved in. And one thing that I've made big for myself is, as far as the marketing, is getting involved in civic groups, getting involved in not in charitable organizations and being on boards. And so I knew every one of them almost, and they all knew me. So I gave them the pitch, and later that night they voted on it, and they actually voted unanimously to sell the build or the field to me. And the mayor called me and told me, and I hung up the phone and I said, "Well, hell, now I got to do it." So we
Sometimes
do
be
have
careful
a
what
we
you
do have
wish
a
for,
rugby
right?
field. I'm probably the only privately owned high school rugby facility in the country, and
Wow.
it's a really cool thing.
That is so cool. And that speaks to you. That probably wouldn't have happened if you wouldn't have been giving so much back to the community prior to that. That's how you got to know all those people.
Exactly.
They know that you are someone who does give to the community, and I think, I don't know, Carl, if you heard it, but he was breaking up just a little bit there. But I think what you were talking about, Rock, is that the challenge is the other people who wanted the property were going to put buildings on it, which means more property taxes. And so
Yeah.
the, the the people who voted on that voted for something that was good for the community and didn't necessarily put any as much money in the pockets. So
Ex-
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Just goes to show sometimes when you give, you get back, and that's a cool thing to have. So how's the field coming along? Is it all done? And
Oh yeah, yeah. It's been done for a couple years. We practice, have games on it. I rent it out to Meridian Charter School for their soccer and flag football programs, which is just around the corner. And then there's Baylor, which is another charter school. They rent it out a little bit over in the fall for their football program, and then we have an adult women's rugby team that rents it out as well. So we're getting a little income off of it, enough to where I put all that back into the field to sustain it, to keep it healthy. And it was a big project. It cost quite a bit of money. But we had lights donated, so that was really, really fortunate. So we can practice in the evening time, and it's just really nice to walk out of my office, go into the building if I need to do stuff there, go to the field if I need to do stuff there. I'm over there quite a bit doing whatever. I have to learn how to be a farmer and all kinds of work on equipment, and it's crazy.
Are there bleachers and things? I mean, is
We have
there?
we have a small bleacher. It's really not designed like most people come if we have a game, they'll come and they'll bring their lawn chairs and stuff. But
Right.
it's worked out pretty good so far.
So how, when you've got these young people in your facility working out, playing basketball, this kind of stuff, does it give you an opportunity to kind of get to know some of these kids and mentor? Uh, is that
Yeah,
part of the draw for you?
yeah. I'm just really excited to see the building filled with kids, finding a passion, whether it's the basketball. The Olympic lifting is incredible. The guy that runs it, Attila Huska, his dad was an Olympic champion from Romania. And Attila, believe it or not, when he's a little bit younger than me. He's probably 10 years younger than me. When I owned my gym in Galveston, one of my buddies said, "Hey, I got this kid. You got to see him lift. He's incredible." And he brought him over to to the gym, and this kid was hoisting like unbelievable weights above his head. He was just a teenager, and it was quite impressive. Anyhow, all these years later, I'm in the gym by myself, like putting things together, and in comes this older man, and he walks up to me and we start talking, and he tells me he's interested in uh in the Olympic lifting, and seeing if we could come together and we could put something in the gym. Come to find out, he was that 15-year-old kid
Ah,
that was, because we were talking about people that we know. He's actually one of the most renowned Olympic lifting coaches in the world. He just happened to live in Round Rock, and we were just fortunate enough to get him in there. He's got these kids in there. It is just really interesting to see because they are locked into this thing. It's like a little cult. They just love it. They don't talk to anybody. They just go in and throw their iron all over the gym, and it's really impressive to see. But yeah,
look,
I like to talk with the kids, and I don't get too much involved if they're already in a sport. But yesterday there was this young man who's 15, and he was probably 250 and 6'2", and his dad was a big tall firefighter. And I said, "Hey, let me show you my rugby field." So I did try to recruit him, that's for sure.
recruit. Look at Carl making notes. I can read Carl's mind right now. He goes, there, the gentleman you were just talking about, Carl's like, he should be a guest on What Drives You. So we may have to
I
get
am.
that introduction.
Well, I part of, Paul, why this uh, whole channel started was during COVID. I was just tired of sitting around watching Netflix, and I just like we gotta, one, do something, but
Yeah,
two, we gotta figure out a way to get people up and about. I've got older parents, and I think I joke all the time with my friends, like, sitting around is the new smoking of our
yeah,
generation. Like, if you don't, our bodies were meant to move, and that better than anyone as an athlete and as a chiropractor. We're not meant, our bodies were meant to be in motion. So part of what this evolution of this channel is, and maybe that's going to be some of your words of wisdom here at the end, is how do we get people to do something? Be better, do better, but begin. Right? That's one of Stan's words for winning. Just start.
yeah.
Start something. If it's just walking around your house, start walking around your house. So I love that you're doing that for the next generation. I love that you're pouring into that. Even if it's not a top tier sport, just getting people in your gym, off the couch, learning something new is profound and powerful.
Yeah. Well, I will tell you, globally, rugby is the third largest sport on the planet. Yeah, so it's a little bit bigger, obviously overseas. It's something the kids learn when they're tiny, and they keep playing. In fact, the life expectancy for for those players overseas is usually in the mid-20s. Maybe they'll get into the 30s. Like over here, most of the guys that learn the game don't learn it until they're in college. So they might play a little bit longer, but they're doing it more socially and having more fun. However, there are some, very good athletes that come out of it in college and represent the country.
You got me curious now. I'm assuming soccer's number one. What
Yeah.
would be number two then before rugby?
I was thinking it might be cricket.
Oh, really? Cricket's
Yeah.
that big?
But
Oh,
it might be basketball because there's a lot of countries play basketball, but at one time rugby was number two, and I don't really know what
yeah.
is bigger than it
Well,
now.
Rock, I appreciate you. I was just driving around last night and was thinking about people that I knew that would be a great guest on this channel, and gave you a call, and you graciously agreed to come right on here and do this with us. I know, I mean, obviously you're a busy, busy guy, so we appreciate you taking this time and kind of sharing your story. I'm going to turn things over to Carl. Carl's going to have a couple of questions that we ask all of our guests. So, Carl, fire away at the rock.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, echoing what Stan said, we know you're busy, and just appreciate you jumping on here and sharing with us. The other part of how this channel was birthed, Stan and I both been in the car business a long time, was we were going to just talk to car people and car industry people. And because I'm like, we got a lot of contacts there, a lot of connections. But then I was like, wait a minute, driving you in life, right? Motivationally, inspirationally is way bigger than the car thing. So we kind of opened the doors a little bit and opened our brains a little bit to say, let's talk about what drives people in life. But we did want to keep this little nugget of car stuff or bike stuff. We had a guest on the other day that's a motorcycle guy, so he talked probably more about motorcycles than cars. So here are my 4 rapid fire questions if you're ready. What was your first car, Rock?
Okay, I'm going to step back a second and tell you something you don't know. My
Okay.
first job out of college was selling cars. I worked at Ertley Auto Mall in Clute Lake, Jackson. Probably the most important job I ever had in my life because it taught me about people. And if you want to
Yeah.
ask me, in terms of success, that would have to be some of it. Because if you don't know how to deal with people and you're in the people business, it's really difficult. So,
I did
and
not
now
know that.
yeah, you didn't know that, yeah. And now to answer your question, what you said, what was my first car?
First car.
Okay, so minus the truck that the Chevy step-side truck my dad let me drive in high school. The first one I ever bought was a Dodge Colt.
This is one of my favorite questions because almost every guest we have, their first car is something along those lines, VW Bug or whatever the case may be.
Well,
All right,
it
so
was
that would,
affordable and it was tiny and
yeah,
didn't have AC. I drove it to Texas from Pennsylvania, and when I got down here with no AC, you had the windows down and you're flying down the road. And the day that I lost that car, somebody in the middle of the night, they must have been drunk, hit it, drug it halfway down the block because those things probably weigh about 400 pounds, and
yeah,
totaled it, which was a blessing in disguise.
yeah.
In my mind, a Dodge Colt is a underpowered tin can that just is redlining all the time because it's struggling just to move along. But yeah, they were just a tiny little car. But hey, great starting car. Okay, what
Mhm.
is your uh current car?
So my current car is an F-150. I had a Raptor, got tired of it. I don't know if you guys know the story. They're moonroofs, but very poor manufacturing. My Raptor smelled like a gymnasium, like a locker room. Couldn't handle it anymore, and I just found a really cool looking F-150. Had a 6-inch lift, leather seats that were already in it, and I like an 8-cylinder, so it's a perfect truck for me. I absolutely love it.
Good. And maybe that'll go to the third question, which is what was your favorite car of all the cars you've owned?
Yeah, I had a 76 collector's edition Corvette.
Little
That was
muscle car.
Yeah, that was a really, really cool car.
And what is your dream car?
Well, I put things into perspective of what I can afford, right? So, obviously, it'd be great to have one of those, you know, $500,000 or $750,000 cars, but that's never going to happen. Probably a 911 Porsche. I've driven
Wait,
one before. Buddies of mine have them, and I've always thought I would eventually end up with one, and I will one day. Right now is not the time for it. Obviously, I've invested my money in other things, but yeah, my buddy had one. We were driving to Vegas from his place in Chino Hills, which is outside of Los Angeles, and had that thing up to like whatever 140, 150. Pretty scary, you know. But I thought, yeah, I want to get one of these one day.
you are not the first to say Porsche, by the way. That Stan and I joke all the time and comment on it. It's one of the very few cars that I think is a piece of art, but it standing still looks like they're moving. So I agree with you that that'd be one of my top three as well. All right. So now we're getting down to a serious question, which we kind of warned you about yesterday, or Stan did, which is what we're calling our words of wisdom, kind of a wow factor. What
Mhm.
would you tell your son, or maybe young Paul, young Dr. Rock? What would you give him or her for advice just in life? And I'll give you some context here. I mentioned one of them earlier. Stan's words of wisdom when I interviewed him was just get moving, start, begin, do something, right? That was just a practical one. We've had ones like just be nice to everybody, be
Yeah.
humble. So it doesn't have to be profound, it doesn't have to be a novel, but just what would you tell young Paul?
Well, I can make it a novel because I got a lot. I'll give you some bullet points though, if that's okay. You
Yes.
know, so I actually teach a class every week, and we go over this. My goal and objective is to motivate and inspire my patients to live better lives. So this isn't a new question for me. You know, I always talk about faith and family and friends and fitness, you know, as keystones. You know, then we have to balance our life with our career and then our contributions, or, you know, what we call pay it forward, obviously. But probably, you know, there's two things that I think that, especially for like a young kid, compound interest is something that they need to understand. And that's, you know, can blossom into a whole nother conversation. But the biggest one that I tell everybody is we need to invest in ourselves. And we just don't do it. We don't think about investing in ourselves. If we can take care of us, we can take care of anybody and anything at all times. And then a buddy of mine once told me, life is a journey, enjoy the experience. And I looked at him and I said, yeah, I'm going to steal that from you. And he said, it's all yours. So I try to live that every day.
Those are good ones for sure.
Well, Rock, once again, thank you, buddy. I appreciate you taking time to join us today. Let's get together for a beer. In fact, I think we need to get the four guys. We didn't really go too into our
Sure.
men's group that we had for a while, which I do miss. And I take responsibility for that kind of falling apart. I kind of moved away a little bit.
You moved, yeah.
Yeah, but we all ought to get together and catch up.
Sure. Love
All
to.
right, buddy. We appreciate you, Carl. Anything else before we say goodbye?
No, I will say this. Do you have a friends and family discount or first time customer? Because I have been dying to try a chiropractor for years,
Hmm.
and I've been watching it since jumping in this YouTube universe. There are so many chiropractors that I just see miraculous things happen to people, which I'm sure you have seen as well in your practice. So I am
Yep.
definitely coming to Round Rock and Dr. Rock next time I'm down to see Stanley.
Well, you come up, I'll give you the tour. I'll take care of you.
Carl comes down here pretty often.
All right.
So let's definitely go and say hi to Rock, and you can see all the stuff that he's talking about that he built, and you got to see the facility itself. I love in the front. He's got like this Greek statue of this of
It's
what was it?
Atlas.
It's Atlas
Yeah.
holding this big rock on his shoulders, and it's just kind of cool. But yeah, thanks, Rock. Thanks,
Yep.
Carl.
Thank you
Thanks, guys.
guys.
Have a great day.
All righty.
Bye
Bye.
bye.